Hello, and welcome to today's episode of the Neurologic Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Aiden Marietta.
Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Justin George, and it's so great to be back here. We had a short podcast last Easter for Easter Sunday, and we hope that you all had a wonderful time with your family members, your friends, and community wherever you're at, whether it's in Indiana, across the nation, or even around the world, because some of our listeners we've been getting a lot of listeners
That's
from
right,
different
from around
places.
the world. So we thank you for that, and we hope that you were able to enjoy Easter Sunday at church. And for that, despite somebody saying some very inappropriate things on Easter Sunday, which may have to do with opening up the blank, I'm not. It wasn't anything sexual. What I'm saying is about the Strait of Hormuz, blah blah blah. You say what you want about it. I'll put it that way.
Yeah,
We'll leave that up to interpretation. I just don't. Been in a bad timing.
I would say bad timing as well was just for Easter Sunday, being able to putting that out there and then just putting that especially on a public post and using that kind of language. I think it's very, like you said, it's very just, I would even say, antithetical to say the least.
Although you and I didn't know about it until the day after, so I think we were all good there. So if it didn't distract you, you should have been fine. But anyways, so spring is finally hitting the state of Indiana, so it seems like we're getting we have the last grasp of winter, which is great. We've got a packed show today, everything from local land battles to a literal papal visit in Monaco, which is going to be great.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, because we're going to go from the cornfields to the Mediterranean today and just talk about everything. And first, we have to go back to something that we talked about way back on January 18th. Some of you may remember when we looked at the Shelbyville data center situation. Well, we said we'd follow up, and boy, do we absolutely have an update for you.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. As the only person in America who loves data centers, unfortunately it's someone here, but I won't say his name, as he likes to say, let's talk about data centers. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. For those who've missed that, we've been advocating for a peaceful no when it comes to building these massive data center developments, eating up our agricultural land. I would make another comparison, but I don't think we'll save that for another time. But the Shelbyville City Council took a major step forward with their plan, which we talked about in the beginning, in that first segment of that show.
That's right. And, they recently advanced the plan for the 400-acre site, and it is a polarizing issue. And, on one hand, the city, they say that they see the tax revenue, and on the other, residents are saying the loss of the small town feel. And it's not just Shelbyville. Monrovia is now exploring annexing land for a massive Google data center. And I would just say, too, again, we both, we know there's been a lot of different things in the news, so we both agree 100%, peacefully but strongly make your voice known.
Absolutely. And no matter how many times a certain old man says he wants to talk about data centers and we're an AI race against China. Sorry, but I'm pretty sure China's not building this kind of crap. In fact, they're laughing at us right now. They're laughing at us when they do this. And it feels like, some people would say it feels like a digital gold rush, Justin, but I don't see it as a gold rush. This is nothing. This is not a gold rush. This is just a money grabbing scheme by folks who just want to line their pockets, in my opinion. And I saw a tweet from Congressman Thomas Massey that really struck a chord. It was talking about the strain these facilities put on our local power grids. Are we trading our long-term resource security for short-term tech investments? I mean, I say this peacefully. We're pro-community. We're not. That's just the way it is.
That's right. We're pro-community, and that's the question we keep asking, because we're pro-community, we're peaceful. And if you want to hear our deep dive into the Shelbyville history, definitely check out our podcast on the January 18th episode. And again, you can find that on Apple, Spotify, Podbean, iHeartRadio. And it's really, we really took a deep dive into what was going on. So we have some sources for you about data centers. And again, we will actually, if you go back to the January 18th episode, I think that really gives a backstory, particularly to Shelbyville, but also one of our first podcasts back in, I believe it was October, right, Aiden?
Yes.
We talked about, some things going on in Morgan County and different places. So, but we have some new information for you, because I think the biggest question we've gotten a lot, and I think it would be, is what is a data center?
I can answer that. It's the ugliest freak of nature you've ever seen.
I would agree. So
there's massive buildings with just like
the dystopian stuff.
Yes. So you thought Terry McAuliffe in Virginia was bad. You ain't seen nothing yet. This makes what he did look like child's play. Basically, there were these massive, ugly, plain buildings, and they pollute. They're pollutants. Like, they'll take in water and they'll dump a bunch of toxic sludge.
And they take up exactly, and they take up the electricity, and this
Mm-hmm.
is the thing. I know there's this new talking point that's going out by the career politicians who, to speak to your point, Aiden, where it's like they say, oh well, we'll have the data centers absorb 100% of the costs.
That is false.
It's false.
He's not going to make, and that person in particular, I'd say to him, I don't mean to interrupt, pardon me, but if you'd like to.
No, it's all good. You know why? Because we're so passionate about this. And
We are.
We just want to bring the
We just
facts.
get so animated.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, again, it's the data centers. We're laughing. We're just like, because it's protecting our land. We are a great state of Indiana. This is home for Aiden and I, and so many of you all as well. And even if you don't live here in our great state of Indiana, we're truly the crossroads of America. And again, it's that small town charm that we were talking about. Like, certainly, we love even our capital city. We love everywhere from the capital city to the rural areas and everywhere in between. But we want to do our part to just pull back the curtain and shine the flashlight and say, this is what's going on. And we want to protect our farmland. We want to protect our way of life. We don't want to change things that are working. So that actually goes right into.
So they have it. The data center people have a new strategy now. They know they can't win in farmlands, so they're doing less of that now, and they're now going into the cities where they can just go right into maybe the downtown areas. That sounds
right.
great. It sounds great. But for the cities, that means the citizens are going to have their power sucked out, and your electricity bills. Well, still everybody's electricity bill will go up because of that. Doesn't matter if they put it now in the big city. If you're going to build it, if it's like, give us a reason. Where's the benefits? Somebody likes to go. He goes, Amazon is willing to pay for all the power. No, they're not. You're going to see to
They're
it.
not.
It's like, come on. And the way that particular person that we did the impression of talks about, let's talk about data centers, he gets really excited.
That's
when
right.
he notices that. But I don't even think he even knows how to use a computer.
I would say the same thing. I mean, how many of these career politicians, actually know how to use a computer? I would even say, what about a typewriter at that point?
Well, they probably at least use typewriters. Those are easy to figure out.
They are. And we've got a good resource for you here. This is from the Texas Department of Agriculture, and it's Commissioner Sid Miller. And this was something that he wrote about recently. And we're going to read this to you together as a team because we feel this is important to actually talk more about what's going on there in Texas, but really just to tie some facts into what is, how to actually get a handle on this data center stuff. And so this is from texasagriculture.gov. Commissioner Miller calls upon state and federal legislators to protect vital farm and ranch land from data center expansion, and this was in January of 2026.
Yes, and he said that he's leading the way on this, whereas Greg Abbott, on the other hand, is not. Which tells
Neither
you
is Dan Patrick, the lieutenant governor there.
Well, Dan Patrick's too busy complaining about medical cannabis, but that's a whole other story.
That's right.
That's what he's busy complaining about, saying it's more dangerous than alcohol. I beg to differ, but
and also speaking of that kind of stuff, Texas needs
they need a new governor.
They need a new governor. They need a lieutenant governor, and also primary John Cornyn.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we can get John Cornyn out this year. But anyways, his proposal. Sid Miller's proposal, as it says on his website, centers on creating federal or state-designed agricultural freedom zones, or AFZs, which would use targeted tax incentives to guide data center development into appropriate areas. The goal is to safeguard vital food production while still supporting growth in tech and innovation. And he said, and I'm quoting, the unchecked spread of data centers onto prime farm and ranch land is a real growing threat to our food supply. But America, yes, does need data innovation and technology infrastructure. I don't disagree with that, but I don't really know if these particular buildings can do that unless they have a better way of not polluting the water supply. But that's another conversation for another time. America will continue to lead the world in both agriculture production and technology innovation, but only if we do it the right way. Keep that in mind, the right way.
Yes.
And as he said, once you pave over that farmland, it's hard to revert it back.
And that's exactly what we're worried about here, and that's why we want to continue to talk about it, because he goes on to say, and again, this is from texasagriculture.gov, and this is from the Office of Commissioner of Agriculture, what we're reading from here, and it says that means less food, higher grocery prices, and more pressure on the land and water that farmers depend on. It is already happening. And he goes on, he says, my plan uses targeted tax incentives, not mandates or handouts, to guide private investment where it makes sense. So that absolutely is something that is important to to keep in mind, because
Yes.
we have the ability to stop this now in Indiana.
Hmm.
And it says that the proposal underscores long-term food security by treating agriculture as essential national infrastructure and by placing firm guardrails around irreversible land conversion. Miller warned that the loss of farm and ranch land is accelerating and permanent. And he goes on to say farmers and ranchers cannot outbid data centers or municipalities for water. See, Aiden, this is the same thing that we're facing here, where these when you see these data center battles, and
Hmm.
the one in Kentucky, I mean, there was like they offered to pay like the farmer, I think it was
And
like
they said no.
yeah, 26 million, and that went up in the news, and folks, that's exactly what's important, because you have like here the 50-year tax breaks for these big companies, and I would just add something
Where's that
too.
money coming from? It's coming from us.
Exactly. And I would just add something too, and maybe this is more, something that applies to me, or maybe to us, and not everybody, but I would say for folks like us who are neurodiverse, who happen to be, and I mean that kind of diversity in the way that God makes us, in his likeness and image, and the type of, the hope concept that we've talked about. Um, these big places where you really are treated as a number, autism or not, it's just not a good fit, and that's one of the issues that, I mean, it applies to people like us on the spectrum, but you don't even have to have what we have to realize that these places. I mean, just go look at Facebook and look at some of the groups and look at what people are talking about, where, especially in today's economy,
Hmm.
where it's, I mean, I think it would be fair to say, Aiden, that it's like it's
Oh yeah.
people are so it's
There.
not just the data centers, but it's these big companies that are getting incentivized, and this
Hmm.
is basically the state coming in and saying this is what you're going to do, and I would even say playing God.
Yeah, and that's because we have a guy on top. I don't even have to mention his name. People can figure out who it is.
That's
Um,
right.
he goes out there and he goes, let's talk about data centers. Look at GDP. We're beating Kentucky. Kentucky. Well, he only says that because Kentucky has a Democratic governor at the moment, but Kentucky's a red state. So, I don't see how we got these GDP bros. Oh, GDP. Yes, I agree GDP is important, but that's not the entirety of the actual conversation. And then when you got him going around saying, how great these big companies are, didn't he want to say about small business? Oh, wait. He doesn't like small business. That's why he's building his little mid-states corridor. Why he wants
That's
to do
right.
it. And that's why he wants to build all these things, because he doesn't like rural farmland. If he liked it so much, I mean, as somebody put it, and it was in Marion County recently at the city council meeting in Indianapolis, somebody had a sign. You saw the picture.
I saw it too.
Saying build it next to his house down in somewhere in particular in Du Bois County. So
I
they're
agree.
saying build a data center right next to his house. I agree. Let's build it right there. See how that goes. I'm sure we could have somebody right there at that house. That
yeah.
household pay for it.
Well,
There's plenty of money there.
And that's the thing that you just brought up, Bait, and that's really, the career politicians, they say, oh, we're going to have this in your backyard. We're going to tell you that we're going to tell you that, oh, well, you're going to be working for these companies, which, by the way, they have the H-1Bs. But another point, like I just mentioned about the neurodiversity, it's like, for people like us, I'm sorry, but I make no apologies. Like, look, everybody has their thing. If somebody, this is what I say. This goes back to faith. This goes back to how we're created. If somebody wants to work in business, somebody wants to work for a large corporation, then that person,
that's great.
yeah, and we actually openly encourage that. The problem is when the government is stepping in and saying, you have to do stuff this way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like, because a lot of times they play semantics and they play word games.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how many times have you seen it? Like, going back to all these career politicians, it's like they're talking about all these things and they use these talking points, but they're not understanding of how this creates an adverse effect on all of us. And I think that sometimes that when you really look at what they're doing, like the tax breaks,
Mm-hmm.
these career politicians, a lot of them who are older, I say this in a peaceful way, they're not going to be around to see the devastating consequences. No. And why should they?
It's like
why should they do that?
And why can't they dress appropriately? That's another thing. I've noticed they're not really dressing as well as they should.
If they're dressing at all, like in Congress in different places.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And that's the thing. We have, and this gets a little off topic, but look at Congress, for example. They can't even agree about stopping the harassment.
No,
and these are verified facts. And again, we're not going to get too much into this, but Representative Nancy Mason, South Carolina, for example, she, who has also teamed up with Thomas Massey on different things, has said that they're doing this. So this, we're not speaking for them,
right?
But we're just saying that they really need to start cleaning up their own backyard in Congress. Yeah. I would say the same thing
like
here.
Tony Gonzalez. Why hasn't he been expelled yet? Why has
Corey Mills in Florida?
Why is Corey Mills not expelled yet? Anthony Sabatini said it just yesterday. He said, "Get him out, expel him. He should be expelled."
And folks,
we expelled George Santos, on
and
actual charges, and yet we went after Ozzie Myers when he took part in Abscam. That was another big thing. And then Ozzie Myers, what was funny is in 2020, he got arrested for voter fraud. That same guy who took the money, who took the bribe, he then committed voter fraud.
And this is what we're talking about. Because even in Florida, with the best governor, Ron DeSantis, who, by the way, unfortunately is term limited, you're facing these issues. Corey Mills, for example. And this isn't our stuff. This is Anthony Sabatini, as you mentioned, Aiden. He put out the facts. There are these things that are going on in Congress. You can't even get enough votes in the House to try to clean that up. And then we got our own problems in the Senate and with John Thune, and I got to tell you, this is the issue. You don't govern that way and then tell everybody how they're going to live their lives.
Exactly.
And again, that's because they're dictating and they're not understanding our God-given rights and our God-given freedoms.
If they even understand it at all.
That's right. If they even understand that at all. That's a really good point. And I think that's the same thing. That's the same thing in Indianapolis. It's the same thing with the career politicians. They're telling you, oh, you're going to love working for these big companies. That, by the way, you're going to love.
That's hilarious.
It is. You're going to love all these data centers. We're going to do this, and they're just putting out stuff, and they're telling you these things because it's going to benefit them.
Yeah, and it's not just Shelbyville, where I think a lot of these council people, although if only a few had the courage to vote against it, and I want to shout, and I don't remember their names off the top of my head, but if you heard our earlier episode in January, you'll know who they are. So can make sure they know that they did a good job. But it's not just Shelbyville politicians that are doing this. Let's look at Lebanon, for example, right in Boone County.
Mayor Matt Gentry.
Oh yeah, he went on a certain show recently, and the host did not go even hard enough on him. This is a host who called him Mouthy Matt and all this other stuff, and then he just barely went hard on him. Let him weasel his way out of it. I'm not saying you shouldn't be respectful, but go hard on him.
Ask the questions. That's right. Go hard on these people and do it because ask the questions.
And because he didn't ask, Gentry was able to weasel his way through it, and he felt, you could just tell he knew he had it. He had this going, and Gentry's the same one who tried to, as our good friend Micah Beckwith said, or Lieutenant Governor, when Gentry's trying to say, Micah Beckwith shall resign. What was it Micah said? That about Mayor Gentry? He's got a history of leaping into issues he probably shouldn't
and
be
carrying the water
for the establishment.
That's right.
His drift.
That's right. If you get his drift, and that goes into all the stuff that's going on in Lebanon. So we've really been talking about these data centers for a while now, but the news out of Shelbyville, I think, is really is something we want to actually report what went on there. Because even like Texas, for example, the land of everything is bigger and a massive tech hub. They're hitting the brakes, as we just mentioned.
Yeah.
Commissioner Miller, he's pointing out that you're trading permanent food-producing soil for concrete shells, that they suck up massive amounts of electricity and water. And the Shelbyville project here in Indiana, that's a local symptom. Now, the Texas warning, that would be the cure. We're not saying that we agree 100%. What we're saying in terms of everybody's going to have their ideas of how to actually get a handle on this. But Miller's stance, does give us a blueprint for Indiana.
It absolutely does. And where's Greg Abbott, by the way?
Nowhere to be found.
He's nowhere to be found because, of course, he's in on this kind of stuff. And we don't just have to say yes because it's a big tech company. Tell them to pound sand. You can demand protections. And if they offer you money, say no. We're the crossroads of America. And we need to be we don't need to be the server farm of America because where's all the food? Because aren't we supposed to be growing corn and soybeans for the ethanol?
That's right.
As well. Say what
we're
you
known
want
for
about,
that.
or how about hemp? What about hemp? Let's start growing hemp for fuel. A good Lucy Brenton, a good friend who's on the Mouthwash show, a panelist there, she said before when she ran for the Senate, we need hemp, because you can make rope out of it. You can make you can make anything
fuel
out of it, and fuel. Now she doesn't like ethanol because and I'll say respect. She says it's another government boondoggle to pay off cronies. I can certainly understand that, but I think you can have a little bit of both.
Exactly. I really think you can have a little bit of both. And these are the things, these are the debates that should be happening here. What would you say in the State House, in our great State House? This is where, like, talking about our great friend Lucy Brenton, that's a great friend of our podcast. And you mentioned Mouthwash Talk Show with John Schmitz. And I think that's really important because these are the debates to have. This is the stuff that the Senate should be talking about. This is stuff that the House should be talking about at the state level, regardless of what goes on in D.C. And this is the stuff that if you had actual people like Ron DeSantis in Florida or Thomas Massey in Kentucky, that if you had actual people that were, the governor of our great state of Indiana, that you would have these conversations being led on. We are not going to agree 100% on everything.
Of course not.
And that's okay. But we need to have good, robust debate. We need to talk about these things. I'm all for looking at the hemp fuel. I'm all for looking at ways that we can really benefit our great state and those who come here from other states to truly welcome people as the crossroads of America. So that's the framework for actually going forward and, doing the right thing. So we wanted to quickly mention the Shelbyville, what went on with the Shelbyville vote recently. It was the other week, and about actually a week ago. So this is from Fox59.com. The Shelbyville City Council advanced the data center plan during a scheduled meeting Monday night. According to a release from city officials, the council voted on numerous resolutions related to the data center. The council rubber-stamped an economic development agreement with Prologis and fiscal plan for the data center that is required under Indiana law. Not all the measures were approved unanimously. And this goes on. Again, this is from Fox59.com. More information on the exact ordinances the council considered and details on how the votes went are available here. And we're going to read that to you.
The plan the council moved forward with on Monday night was for a multi-phase data center development that could include up to 11 buildings, and I'm going to say 11 ugly buildings, by the way.
I agree.
They're ugly. The company behind the center could invest up to $2 billion on the project. Sure. As council members voted on ordinances Monday, a crowd of the project's detractors made their voices heard in a video of the data center discussion posted to YouTube. Members of the gallery at Monday night's council meeting could be heard yelling and jeering throughout. So they were not happy. And previous reporting indicates that 429 acres of land wrapped up in the project are located near Interstate 74 and State Road 44, just east of Shelbyville. California-based real estate firm Prologis, so another out-of-state company, that tells you everything right there, is behind the land acquisition portion of the project. The developer has not publicly identified a tenant for the data center buildings as of January.
And that's actually another concern that, they haven't even, again, this is not even being publicly disclosed. Now, yes, it's a private property, but the problem here is, and this really gets important to get into the mechanics of this, of what you just read, because, see, here's what's going on. They're approving these things, and you really got to, again, see what's going on. When it comes to private property rights, and obviously whether you own a place, you rent, whatever the situation is, the catch here, and this is really key, and I would think, is these things are being approved for these big companies, and we're not knowing what's going on, and they're just going through the approval and the things that are zoned in a certain way. So the zoning,
out of state companies, I may add.
Yes, and that's actually a good point. And the zoning, that's where you really have to look into all this to see, okay, with the zoning, are you zoned for something, but then a career politician at the local level, the state level, this is what we want to continue to look into to bring the facts. We want to get it right. Mm-hmm. Are there deals going on? And there are.
Oh yes.
There are. So,
someone got bought.
Exactly. And this is why this article is so important. Now, They say it was reported that this campus could create up to 450 full-time jobs that will boast annual salaries around 100,000.
That is a load of crap.
It is. And
you know who those jobs are going to? They're not going to Hoosiers. They're going
not.
to people either out of state or the H-1Bs.
That's right. Now, this is very important also. It says the city of Shelbyville held multiple hearings, and again, this is from Fox 59, on the project before Monday night's meeting. So despite community outcry, including a petition to halt the project, see, they're going about it the right way. The city council moved forward with the data center plan. So this is really another issue because, like you said, it's not just Shelbyville. Similar projects have been proposed in Pittsboro, Henry County, Decatur Township in Indianapolis, Morgan County, and the Martindale Brightwood neighborhoods in Indianapolis. And we've been following what's going on because it's so much, and you got to look at all the things. And now you look at Amazon and Meta. They just talked about it. St. Joseph's County, Lebanon.
Mm-hmm. And of course, we got one guy who loves to, Mayor of Lebanon, Matt Gentry. Again, if you want to, I say to the folks in Lebanon, if you want to stop this, vote him out. And if you don't vote him out, he's just going to continue to do this stuff. By keeping him in there, you will enable him. That's
right. And this is the things you have to go vote. We're going to be voting in our Republican primary election.
That's right.
And I would just say, we're going to close this segment with a quote from Thomas Massey. This is from Twitter. We're not on Twitter, but we use the Google find.
Through Google.
Over the first 4 years, the big, beautiful bill adds nearly $2 trillion to our deficit, beyond the deficit that would have been caused by Biden-level spending. That's right. Republicans have increased spending, and I'm taking all kinds of heat for calling them out on the betrayal. So that's what we're dealing with, that kind of concept at a state level, where we're calling out our own side, and we want people to be strong and peaceful.
Absolutely.
And obviously vote, but get really involved in this because it's important to see, okay, and the reason why I mentioned the private property thing, see, there are a lot of times what I'm gathering from these career politicians, and I wonder...
and particularly globalists.
Well, yeah.
Globalist Republicans, like Gentry.
Right, and I think what I'm gathering, and I wondered your thoughts on this, is they're packaging it in the way that, like, look, like, we're going to approve this. And they talk about private property rights. Look, that's not the issue. The issue is the lack of transparency.
But they don't believe, that's another thing.
They
don't believe in property rights. And not only that, then they'll tell you, oh, don't worry, there's going to be a job there for you. And then they say, oh, yeah, just kidding, we're giving that to a foreigner.
That's right.
I'm not saying that to be saying foreigner to be offensive or to go after people from foreign countries. I'm not trying to say that. I'm saying they're literally importing people from and they're doing it from, and it's not just from out of the country, they're doing getting out of state people. The state, under the current IEDC leadership, and the guy who chaired, not just David Adams, but someone else in particular, they actively encouraged out-of-staters from California to move here for a job and then move out.
And folks,
that is unacceptable.
And that absolutely, it's absolutely unacceptable. And that absolutely, in addition to what Aidan just mentioned, again, for the so-called jobs that the citizens here hold, again, this goes back to this. Is it really a good fit? My answer is no. Now, separately from that, okay, if you go about things the right way, and we have a lot of great companies here, if somebody, business, whatever your God-given gifts are,
of course,
we would encourage people to do that because that's where you're truly going to live your God-given potential without having the government force these dystopian things. So, folks, we're going to wrap up segment 1. And in our next segment, we're going to talk about current events, a little bit of more politics, but also talk about Autism Awareness Month because we're in the middle of it. So we will continue to bring some more awareness in that segment.
All right. So now for segment 2, we're going to be looking at some current events and... let's see. We've got some stuff going on here. So I guess we'll start with somebody, Paul Cruz, who is running for a Warwick County Sheriff down in southern Indiana. And he said, and we thought this was interesting, some of my proudest moments as a law enforcement officer have been when we're working together with other agencies to achieve a common goal. That is something that the Warwick County Sheriff's Office excels at, and I aim to continue that tradition of excellence. And I think that he talked about collaboration there, and that's certainly important.
Absolutely, and I think that's really important because, and again, we really appreciate what he's doing because it keeps not only the county safe there, but it also keeps our great state of Indiana safe, and really being able to we don't live there, but to be able to say, hey, we see good state and local leaders.
Though I will point out, Ken Colbert was down there in Warwick County. He's from Vanderburgh, but
That's
Warwick
right.
County.
We love Ken Colbert.
Ken Colbert is a friend of the show. He and his co-host run Republicans in Bad Standing, which that's their show. He was in Warwick County when Micah had a town hall, and that town hall. I mean, you've been to Micah Beckwith's town halls. I mean, when you asked a question there, and it was a great question, gave a great answer, and you got booed by the left.
I saw that, and
let's just say sometimes it's not his fault, but I was just pointing out that one got a little.
It got out of hand. It had to end early.
Yeah, because one of the ladies assaulted a sheriff's deputy.
And then there was the ceiling camera footage, which that also added to it. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot. I mean, not really. I know some people are like, oh, the ceiling camera footage. I'm like, yeah, let's see what
that incriminated her.
Let's actually see the ceiling camera footage because I guarantee you it's got a better angle. Yeah. And so we really wanted to shed some light on this here because this is something that is very important to talk about, and this is from Carrie Prezan Bowler. And as many know, she was removed from the Religious Liberty Commission for exercising religious liberty. Mm-hmm. And we just feel that that's really we'll take a stand for that.
Yeah.
This isn't about Catholics versus non-Catholics. This isn't about different faith traditions. This is about the fact that removal was morally wrong.
Yeah.
Are we saying we agree 100% with her on everything?
No.
Not necessarily. But the fact is that was wrong, and we're one of the few that I think are willing to,
mm-hmm. She was take
a stand.
I think it was Paula White that was the one who facilitated it, and the less I say about Paula, the better.
Absolutely.
You could go down a whole rabbit hole about her and where she goes on those, and then she starts speaking in that weird language. I have no idea what that is, but it's almost like she's putting a curse.
Exactly. And that stuff is absolutely,
she's a witch.
Well, I mean, I would just say that it's not based in true. I would just say it's just really off-putting to us. And I think also that to be able that she went to, again, Thomas Massey, who's going to be looking into this. I know his office was going to look into that, and it really is an issue. And she's gone on some other shows where she's talked about that, and she's talked about like you just said about Paula White, and she was on a couple different shows where she talked about some phone calls she received and was kind of basically being warned about certain things. So that's really
it's really something there, and we think Carrie is doing a good job. And
yes,
and if I won't play a clip of Paula White, but I'll just give you an idea of what she does. She goes, strike and strike and strike and strike and strike and strike and strike. And
it's not even. It's like, and she's like, and that's when she was doing the weird tongue stuff, which I won't repeat. And look, I'm not getting.
It's hard to pronounce.
Exactly, and we're not getting into. I mean, we're not going to get into because I know there's been debates about different things. We're just saying that there's something's off with this, and it really is.
Just like Kenneth Copeland. No, I do not, and don't you ever say I did.
Which exactly, and conversely, we want people to be able to practice faith.
Of course.
We feel that it's the third strand in our friendship. It's the faith is at the center of everything we do. It's not just the aspect. So unfortunately, you have bad people who are they don't portray it accurately, and that's a real disservice to evangelization. Which, by the way, I would just say needs to occur with this, broken culture that's like just anything goes. Well, we're a nation of laws, and that just gets into the whole thing where you talked about the founding fathers and on our short episode. So we have some introspection. A couple folks have asked us about autism awareness and kind of how it manifested in us. And so here's an interesting fact about us. We right now we don't struggle with loud noises.
No. In fact, you could have a fire alarm go off. I would probably jump a little bit because I didn't expect it, but unless you told me it was coming, and I just don't mind it.
Exactly. So, again, autism is a spectrum, and, one of the things is, as we've mentioned, we have a lot in common with areas of interest, but one of the cool things that we're learning is we're learning more about our brains, and this actually ties back into faith and just how God has made us, but also where faith and the things that we can do to help people like us really go hand in hand. So we've been doing some research recently, the last few days, about neurotransmitters, and even like when we do favorite activities of ours. One of the cool things that we learn is like when we engage in things together, that there are. This is just really fascinating for us. That you know what? It's not that we think we're better than anybody else, but we just have a simple, especially in our best friendship, a really simple way of just this natural understanding. Wouldn't you say?
Yes, and I think another thing that helps having to do with that, our brains, is that we're actually a little easier at spotting phonies from a mile away.
Yes.
I can give you an example. Up in the Lafayette area, I just found this. Ron Elting, who is let's just say he's one of those rhinos that we need to get rid of, and that's why we're supporting our good friend Richard Bagsby.
That's right.
Ron Elting got the Trump endorsement. Now, let me make it clear to everybody. The president has no idea what was going on other than he voted in a certain way that he liked. I'll leave it at that. But he's like, but here's what the thing mailer said. Ron Elting, proven, principled, conservative. False. Ron Elting is the conservative Republican fighting alongside President Trump to make Indiana great again. Well, I will point out that the folks in Lafayette were against redistricting. Regardless of how you felt about it on the mid-decade redistricting, citizens of Lafayette told him not to do it. He didn't listen to them.
Absolutely.
And this was both sides. That's a Democratic area.
Exactly. And getting back on topic here for autism.
I just had to point out that our brains work because we can smell phonies.
Absolutely. And getting back on topic here,
yes,
because
let's do that.
See, the thing is this, we have, that's a very good example that Aiden came up with about spotting phonies, but it's not just the politics. I mean, that's one aspect. And actually, that actually brings up a great point because, and I was going to get into this a little bit later, but I think we could bring it up now. What do you think?
Yeah.
That is that, being able to spot phonies is a big thing, but also I think that being able to understand the way in which we can communicate, we can communicate why we see these things. It actually ties into spiritual graces that God gives us. So we're still learning a lot about this. Both our faith journeys, I think, we've talked about wanting to work on that. So it's actually a really good example. But for our listeners, I wanted to give some insight. So there's a thing called the body doubling effect, and that's something that we both experience right now with this podcast. So, and what that is like this actually goes into independent living together when we're going to be living together in our complex. That even when we're in our separate rooms during downtime, that it's the knowledge that another person is nearby and acting as a body double. It can help people like us with executive dysfunction. It creates basically a subtle passive dopamine flow that makes it easier to do tasks like pay the utility bills or just decompress and do things. And I think that one of the things that we both have been experiencing, I want your take on this, is to be able to have that with not just our shared interest of politics. It's very important and we're passionate about it. We love doing quotes, we love memorizing things, but also that we're really, I would say, what would you say, in tune with each other?
Yes, I would say so.
And that really helps. And this is another thing, and I think I'm pronouncing it right, serotonin. Having a stable, predictive living environment with a peer who understands your communication style and understands you boosts that.
Yes.
And it can even regulate mood and sleep cycles, which are often disrupted in neurodivergent individuals.
Definitely.
So I would like your take on that as well.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely a good take, and I think it's accurate. Sometimes doubling actually really helps in many ways because you'll be able to get maybe a better perspective of how each of you sort of operates in their own right. I don't mean that in a bad way.
It's a good way. And I think that's one of the things too that as Aiden and I learn more about each other and is getting into the facts. Like we've talked a lot about our story, we've talked a lot about the divine intervention, but especially when it comes to this podcast, getting into the getting into the facts about it and talking about like the loud noises thing. It's a spectrum. So just because it doesn't impact, like with the loud noises thing, I get a little startled if it, like you said, with the fire alarm or whatever it is or something. But it's really important that that we talk about this stuff because that's what the theme is of our podcast,
right?
And knowing that it's a lifelong journey. Our diagnosis isn't going to go away. So it's not that I would say not defined by it, but being able to actually talk about it and obviously live it out and continue to advocate for
Absolutely,
folks.
and that's basically the big part of it, and that's why we do this, and I think that's the big reason as to why we do this podcast as well. And as
Well, and even just like the this is something, the neurochemistry of connection. So like when we talk about good people that we look at and in our, especially in areas of mutual interest like politics. So we talk about like our great lieutenant governor. That boosts the positive chemicals in our brains, and it helps us because we're out there, in the community. And that whole goal of, independent living together, being able to live our God-given potential, and that's the way we're going to do it. And being able to immerse ourselves in the community, I think, is really valuable.
Absolutely, I'd say so too. And there's a lot of value in that. And so I think we've got a lot on that. So that was a very interesting conversation. I say that very much in a good way. And now we have a third segment, of course, as we always do, coming up. And this one will be a little lighter. So we hope you will enjoy it. So stay tuned. We will be right back.
And now for our third segment, we have a lot of interesting things in the sports arena that we're going to talk about, and it's very we've got a lot to talk. We've definitely got a lot to cover.
Certainly we do, because for this third segment, if you live in the 317 or the 812 area codes right now, your sports emotions are basically a roller coaster with no brakes.
I would say though, I would say that, we're living through the highs and lows, and we've got a national championship trophy, that's sitting in Bloomington, and we have a king of the state, Fernando Mendoza, don't we?
Yes, we do, and so let's start with him. Fernando Mendoza, the man, just visited the Las Vegas Raiders this week, according to Fox Sports. It was his only pre-draft visit, and when you're the number one overall pick and a Heisman winner, I guess you only need one stop. Although I will say this, I know the Raiders want him, but we could certainly the Colts could use him.
I was about to say, you completed my thought there, because I was about to say, I think that the Colts, right here in the great state of Indiana, so if any of those who have the powers to be to draft Mendoza, please do it.
Yeah.
Please do it.
I won't blame the Raiders for doing it. I know Fernando's originally from Miami, so I would hope, I can understand the Raiders because they might need a few players.
They see talent where they see it,
yeah,
and
I'm just hoping that they can get some of those IU kids in the Colts, because maybe they'll start winning more.
Exactly, and that actually brings up a good point.
I say that nicely.
Yes, and think about how it's like with the IU football team that we're talking about.
They used to be one of the worst.
They were one of the worst 2 years ago, and look at what Coach Signetti did. Look at how he turned it. Look at how he turned around the team in 2 years. Hence the national championship. So we would say we actually see the same potential with the Colts.
Yes. So and let's get it done.
Exactly. And even different players, like you said, let's get it done. To those that have the powers that be when you're doing the draft for the Colts, get it done. And even those of you that are listeners, make suggestions. Which players do you want to see be drafted to the Colts? And so this was this is something, it's going to be first round draft for Mendoza, because he's going to be entering, but he is also, and again, this is from Fox Sports, he's also going to potentially join a quarterback room led by veteran Kirk Cousins. So that's really impressive.
That's really something there.
Exactly. And he posted one of the strongest statistical seasons, this is about Mendoza, in recent memory. He completed 72% of his passes for 3,533 yards and 48 total touchdowns. That's a lot, isn't it, Aiden?
Yes, and who can forget in the championship game when he just went for it.
He went for it.
And he got the touchdown.
Boom. And, that was really something. That was a game to watch.
That's right. And Rick Scott was one of the guy who committed Medicare fraud. He was saying, we're going to beat us in Miami. We're going to beat them. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, by the way, Rick, you didn't beat us. So
he didn't.
Take that.
Exactly. So I think the biggest thing, too, is this article was one of the things that we wanted to cite here, because somebody even said his best trait is his mind. Mm-hmm. And that was the NFL personnel executive who had commented about that. He's a pocket quarterback with quick eyes and a quick release. He processes coverage and pressure at a high rate, good arm strength, and excellent accuracy. He's tough, and he shows poise in high-stress situations. Excellent makeup NFL starter. So what do you think about how that could benefit the Colts? I agree.
Yeah, I think whether it's the Raiders or the Colts that get him, because I actually do like the Raiders as well. They're probably
they're a good team.
They're really good. They probably need some good players. I think there's no doubt about it. And I think they're doing better in Las Vegas than they did in Oakland. I'll just say that. But in any case, I think for the Colts, I mean, I'm not going after their current quarterback. He's all right. I don't have any issues with him. I just think if you're gonna get new players. If you're the Colts right now, you need to get some of those IU guys because and I'm not just talking about Fernando. I'm talking about some people on the whole team because you got a lot of good ones there. You got good defensive folks. You got good folks on offense. There's a lot to choose from.
That's what I was saying. There's so many to choose from, and the fact that it's right here in our great state of Indiana.
But who can blame every team for wanting to get Mendoza? They all want him.
Yeah, if I was in a position to do that, I would be the one drafting him, regardless of which team. And we're the geography.
You'd go to the Super Bowl with that.
Exactly, where the geography is located. I mean, yeah, you go to the Super Bowl, and I think the other thing too, you mentioned the offense and defense, and that was one of our recent podcasts, or I say recent. It was also earlier this year in the winter, and seemed like a long winter. But I think football actually helped. We watched a lot of the games on TV or online, and that really helped broke up the monotony of the long winter, and that's where I think, especially now, it's spring. We got a lot of energy moving forward. There's still a lot of energy surrounding the IU championship. So I think, like you said, both the offense and defense, and we read some of that in our podcast. And we'd be happy to even take a greater look and a deep dive. In fact, that's one of the things we can say that we're going to be before we started recording this. That Aiden said, "Hey, next Sunday we want to actually follow up with some statistics and actually see where some of these players could go."
Absolutely, and I think we'll certainly do that. And I still remember the championship was very much a big deal. In fact, we had little kids at wanting school to be wanting to skip school, asking if they could have school delayed on the next morning so they could stay up late and watch the championship game. So it got young kids excited. So I think that's a good thing.
And that's another thing too, because our great state is known for sports, and it gets everybody excited from young to old and everywhere in between of all different backgrounds, I would say. And this also, according to 247sports.com, it notes about that Mendoza, that he wanted to, again, going back to celebration, to be right here, to celebrate with everyone. So that was to celebrate where we started, according to 247sports.com. So I would just say that's really, really, really something.
Absolutely. It's very bold. And what they're saying is, come watch the next era of football while we watch. They're going to make a movie out of this at some point.
They will.
Just like they did with the basketball in 1984 with the movie Hoosiers, or even a lesser known one as Madison or Rudy. They're saying watch the next one as we go number one. It's going to be on the big screen. I think the height is it's sustainable, especially with Curt Cignetti as the head coach. I don't think this is a once in a lifetime thing.
Exactly. I don't think it's a once in a lifetime either. I think that it's bound to be replicated. And I'll never bet against Cignetti, but replacing 48 touchdowns, it's a
tough order. Now, tall orders. The Pacers are going to be playing the Pistons tonight. We're sitting at 18-60 right now. That's the schedule that SeatGeek has. It shows it's been brutal. Tyrese Halliburton's not in there. Siakam is not in there. It's just a lot of development minutes, and that's just...
It's painful. I think it's painful to watch, the hopes we had in November. But, to be real, at least at this recording, 18 wins, we're deep in the hunt for a top 3 pick. So if we're going to suck, this is here to do it, right? It's like what team?
Yeah,
it's like, I hate this losing culture?
Yeah, I don't like losing, but, I know it's inevitable sometimes. But looking at reports, we'll see. But one last thing before we get out of here. The NFL draft is less than 2 weeks. The Colts have brought Daniel Jones back. That's what Roundtable said, and I think that's great to see. And they've pointed out they've been actively in the secondary market, but the quarterback room still feels like a question mark.
It does.
Well, there's some potential there.
Yeah, a lot of potential, and
somebody in particular.
That's right.
That's all I'll say.
That's exactly. So, we need stability, and I think that that's important with this. And then, I would also say too, IU baseball. That's something to look at. So
Mm-hmm.
we're going to be talking a lot about this in our next podcast next Sunday. The Indianapolis Indians prospect weekend. Actually, of this recording,
That's our minor league team.
yes, and it absolutely is fantastic to see. Now that is actually just including as of today. So we've been looking at it, and we'll have a lot to talk about with that next weekend. And I just think there's a lot more, especially the weather. It's finally, I mean, winter tried to make its one last gasp. I'm like, thankfully we don't have to deal with the snow because it's annoying.
Oh, I
So
know.
it's just really
It's
something.
great. And now we're going to leave you, before we wrap up this whole thing, we're going to leave you one question that you can put in the comments, and you'll find it interesting.
Yeah, so here it is. If you could only choose one for the next 5 years, would you take another IU football national championship or the Pacers winning their first NBA title?
That is a tough one.
It is tough. I mean, there's pros and cons, and maybe we'll let you all know next week what we think. Maybe.
Mm-hmm. We'll have to see. Maybe. But now to do some lightning round questions, the rapid fire. One thing we both like about sports, I'd say just watching and enjoying it. It's a lot of fun to watch.
It is. I say watching and enjoying it. I think just it gets your mind going and it gets you out to, especially, watching online or TV is great, but also it gets you in the zone. But then just being there, I think would be,
Oh, yeah. So you go
and
to
we're
a Colts
planning
game
on
in Lucas Oil, you'll feel the energy.
exactly, and that's what we're planning on doing to go to games and do
Yes.
different stuff. And this is part of tying it back to faith and introspection of stuff. Got to get out there and have fun.
That's right.
That's what we encourage people to do.
And then the second last lightning round question is, what is the best part about Indiana sports? Well, I guess it gets everybody together. In fact, you can get those career politicians like we saw at the State of the State address, when all it took for them was to mention something like a line, because that just mentioned the champs, and then they all get up and clap like seals.
Yeah.
They're like,
Yay!
yay, yay, like as if that person up there who said it had anything to do with that. No, that was Coach Signetti's doing. So I'm sure so I'll leave it at that. I'll leave it at that
too.
But I'm just pointing out
I'll
that they
leave
all
you in
clap.
suspense. I'll tell you at the time.
Yeah, I'm just pointing out they all clapped like seals, although most of the Notre Dame fans just sat down. I don't blame them, because Notre Dame, I have family that's from up north. One side of the family comes up from up north in South Bend, where that's where Notre Dame territory, and we're still upset that they got rigged of being in a championship. They got rigged out of it.
It did get rigged. And so, we have a question for the week for you all.
Mm-hmm.
I know we said we had the sports thing, but something to ponder. What things are important to you at a local level? So we'll give our perspective. And yes, let us know. We'll also give our perspective. So I'll let you go first.
For me, at a local level, it's being engaged, keeping the elected officials in line, because you got to do that.
That's right. You got to do that.
And paying attention to the statewide stuff as well. I know everybody's like, oh, but the president said, yeah, I get that's important. It's not but the most important thing is what's closest to you. That's your local level, your county level. The state level is important too, and we've got a lot of folks that need to go.
That's right. We do have
of them.
A lot
Not
of them.
just this year, next year, and in 28.
That's right.
We've got
a lot of work to do the next 2 years
to get some better people in there. I will say that.
And I agree.
And we have ideas.
We have a lot of ideas. We have a lot of ideas. Some of them, they know who they are. If you're on Facebook and you see certain,
you've seen us.
Ruckuses that we cause.
Yes, we'll leave it at that. We've caused a ruckus.
We'll leave it at
every
that.
now and then.
we have, and
for the most part, it's positive reactions, but who knows? But other than that, thank you so much for listening. And it really does mean a lot to us that our listeners are taking the time to hear us dive into the conversations. Now, before we head out, we want to make sure you can stay connected beyond this audio. You can find everything we do, from our latest episodes to our social updates. It's on our main hub, sites.google.com/view/Aiden and Justin. And while you're there, be sure to check out the dedicated podcast and social media page, so you can find us on all the platforms that we are on and engage with us on our socials. You're going to help us support and grow that community. And I also want to take the moment to say that we're very happy and blessed.
We are very happy and blessed, and to do this podcast and to grow it. And it's God's love for us. It's a labor of that, and seeing the community grow around our Neurologic podcast, it's absolutely incredible. So if you haven't already, please hit that follow button on your favorite streaming platform, as well as any social media site or sites of your choice. It really helps us grow in an organic way. We really appreciate the growth, and it's important to us, especially since communications is our passion, and
Very much.
we want to leave you with some positivity as you head back into your week. And we wish you all a week filled with peace and joy, no matter what you're facing. We truly hope you find those small moments of stillness and happiness and the adventures. And it's an honor to be doing this every week. And we love the feedback, the shares, and the messages we get from all you. It keeps us motivated and keeps us digging deeper. And what is one thing before we close that you would say as far as to give people some advice to get through the week?
You're putting me on the spot with this one like you usually.
I love to do that.
I know you do. I guess stay engaged and keep those. If you got some bad people that are not doing their job, vote them out.
That's right.
Vote them out.
That's right. So
I'm looking at Lebanon. I have to say it. But
I
thank
agree.
you so much. But thank you so much. God bless, and thank you so much for coming on. We'll see you next Sunday.
That's right. Thank you for everyone for the support. We will see you next Sunday, and God bless and take care.